Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Kathy McCory, and I'm the CEO here at the Greater Issaquah Chamber. And if you've not been to one of our webinars before, welcome. Know that this is being recorded so that this educational opportunity will be added to our YouTube video library. And our speaker today is well aware of that. So we thank him for graciously agreeing to add his knowledge to a permanent database for not just the chamber members, but for all the business members in our community, which is extremely important that we're all supporting each other right now. And with that, I want to let you know, because it is a webinar, I'm going to introduce you to Ashwin, and I'm going to encourage you to use the chat to enter questions as they occur to you. Just feel free to enter questions into the chat at any time. Know that will allow Ashwin time to go through his presentation, and then I will be asking Ashwin the questions that you have in the chat, and he will be able to answer all of those questions today for you. So with that, I'd like to formally introduce you to Ashwin M, as I say, and that's never, and Ashwin, I am so sorry, I can never pronounce your last name correctly. I will sit down with you next time we get together, and I will get it until I'm blue in the face, I promise. But I would like you to make sure you do properly introduce yourself as full name. Also, just for those watching, Ashwin and I have known each other for some years, and so I just always call him Ashwin. But Ashwin is the owner and president of TeamLogic IT in Renton and Kent. And it's a franchise that addresses small and medium-sized businesses and IT needs. Clients include medical clinics, dental practices, law firms, financial and insurance firms, engineering and architect firms, real estate brokerages, manufacturing firms, and nonprofit organizations. So I don't think there's anyone on the call that Ashwin cannot help. He also owns and operates multiple retail businesses, such as the Chevron gas station right here on Front and Gilman in Issaquah. He's one of my neighbors. It has a convenience store with it as well. Plus, he also has a health food store. Before embarking on his entrepreneurial journey, Ashwin worked for 17 years in big tech companies such as Microsoft, Expedia, and Siemens, and Siemens, where he spent time in both product development and IT management. During his time at Microsoft, he managed tools that were used by IT managers, asset managers, and network engineers to run IT infrastructure in Microsoft data centers. With experience in both business and technology, Ashwin understands the various IT needs of a business owner and uses technology to help businesses grow and succeed. And with that, I'd like to turn things over to you, Ashwin. Thank you so much. We all know how important cybersecurity is and how what a threat it can be to small businesses, much like my own. And so I'm looking forward to learning a lot from you today. Thank you. And I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you, Kathy, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you, Diana, as well, for helping setting this up, giving me an opportunity to talk to the chamber and its members about cybersecurity and how to protect your data and IP from hackers and from ransomware. With that, let me get started. A little brief introduction, like what Kathy was mentioning. My name is Ashwin Muthu Venkataraman, and I am a franchise owner. I represent TeamLogic IT. I'm based in Renton, and I have support also in Bellevue as well as in Linwood as well. I have access to a team of 120 engineers that I can use to support your business. My goal is to help reduce IT pain for small and medium businesses so that they can focus on growing their business rather than worry about IT. With that said, you can use the chat box to ask any questions, and I will address them or connect with you immediately after the webinar to get you an answer. Okay, so our focus is on the importance of protecting your data and minimizing your cybersecurity risk. These 5 questions we will address will help you and your employees understand how cybersecurity affects your business. According to cybersecurity publications, the small businesses saw a 424% increase in cyber attacks last year. 60% of the small businesses think that they are unlikely to be attacked because most believe that they have nothing that hackers would want. I want to share a small story here. I'm part of a local networking chapter, BNI, and one of my BNI members was reaching out to me and my fellow member who's a commercial insurance agent as well, and asking us questions as to how to handle her scenario where she has a multi-location business and she got hacked, and their IT was managed locally by their family member, and they were trying to figure out how to handle the situation because the hackers had taken down their network and they lost access to their business pretty much. And the hackers were demanding $150,000 of ransomware. That's a lot of money for a small business to be paying, and it's not worth taking the risk of putting your organization in the hands of a hacker and losing control of it. It's just unfortunate that the person was going through that situation. They decided not to move forward and hand over the money to the hackers. That they had a very tough time getting their systems back in place, and their business up and running. So it kind of gives you an idea of how realistic the situation is. So I just wanted to share that with you and give you an idea about what's going on in the real world. Why has hacking becomes a billion-dollar business? Because it's so profitable to be a bad guy. With the explosion of the cost of security breach, ransomware is fueled by hackers who necessarily don't want your data, but they know that you want your data, right? There's a lot of money behind it. As you can see, the greatest risk to your company is through phishing, hacking, and malware campaigns. And those are primarily delivered via email. But you can also see there's also the human error and the theft from inside and outside as well. And there's also other sources of risk, including vendors that steal our data. And there's the improper disposal of your equipment. But primarily, you need to be concerned about phishing, hacking, and malware hitting your inbox. I'm part of a Pacesetters group, and part of that Pacesetters group, one of my fellow franchise owners, he is supporting a big business with 600 employee count. I came to know through him that a couple of their IT engineers working in the organization pretty much created a situation where they were taken for ransomware, and the engineers, the local engineers, the employees of the company pretty much hacked into worked with the hacker, in fact, hacked into the network, and the FBI was brought in, and investigation went through, and they were arrested. But just kind of gives you an idea about how even internal theft is also a pretty big risk as well. We've all seen this, right? It's basically emails from all these big companies and pretty much email impersonation that comes into your inbox, right? I'm sure you've all received an email from Amazon or FedEx. This is how hackers will fool you, and they can do it so well. So be aware and cautious when it comes to receiving unsolicited emails. So I would like to share some couple of tips when handling such situations. First one is, when in doubt, throw it out. Links, social media posts. This is how often the hackers try to steal your personal information, right? And think before you act. If it sounds too good to be true, or anyone is asking for personal information, just delete it. it's not only email, there's also people trying to call you, right? Hang up on calls and messages that asks about accounts. They're looking for any open door possible to get information to compromise your company. We've talked about email and phone calls, but human error is an issue. Remember these important tips when you're doing actual work. Wiring or exchanging money, always have a two-step verification process that eliminates the ability for anyone to authorize transfers on their own. This has become more common among escrow companies and escrow and title companies, where they're basically working as escrow for real estate transactions. There have been circumstances where the buyers have been cheated or cheated of wire frauds and stuff. So this has been going on. So that's something to keep in mind. Here's some tips that Microsoft recommends for managing your passwords. Don't have simple passwords that are easy to hack. Try to treat this serious. I mean, keep this serious because this is your account. This is your personal information. So try to follow these steps, and that would help you manage your password and access to your account and prevent security security breaches to happen. Defense in depth. This is the concept of security, layered security or defense in depth is not new. People have been devising ways to protect others from accessing what is important to them for millennia. So this is something everyone knows, right? So one kid in Chicago got the layered security right. And we all know who that is. And he did a great job in the movie, as you can notice that he had several layers to protect himself, and he did a great job. So, some of these things are common. What makes layers easy to access. Some things to keep in mind. How are you providing layered security for your clients, right? I mean, all of these solutions are in place to provide layers of security to reduce cybersecurity attacks. If the attacker defeats one solution, the other layer is there to stop them as they attempt to move laterally in the organization. So these solutions will not help much if best practices are not implemented. Here's an example of, a castle and how you have different layers in place to protect yourself. Your castle is your organization, and your data is in the middle of the organization, and your IP is in the middle of the organization. How do you protect yourself? So you want to have several layers of protection. Think of it as a castle and the several layers of protection to help defend yourself from hackers. If one layer fails, the other layer helps protect access to the hacker and prevents the access to the hacker as well. You have endpoint protection, you have firewalls in place, you have email encryptions in place, making sure that you have awareness trainings on cybersecurity for your employees. I call this employees as, they say employees is the weakest link for an organization when it comes to cybersecurity. But if you were to train them and equip them with the right tools, then they become one of your best first line of defense against hackers. So think of it that way. Some of the things that can help that help the hackers get access to you is like, if the firewall is not properly configured, the user clicks on a malicious attachment, the DNS filtering is not configured for malicious sites, if the systems are not regularly patched, and if you minimize attack surface with multiple layers of security, so then you protect yourself against such vulnerabilities, right? Layered defense must be proactive. Being reactive may be too late or costly to handle. And remember that one size does not fit all. Must have custom policies and controls in place, and make sure that your employees read them, understand them, and implement them in their day-to-day jobs as well. Attacks are constantly changing, and cybersecurity system also has to evolve together, not just individually. And in the event of a breach, there must be an incident response plan in place, in-house or outsourced. And it's very critical that you have an incident response in place. Responding to a critical cybersecurity incident can be incredibly stressful and intenseful in time. While nothing can fully alleviate the pressure of dealing with an attack, understanding these key tips would basically help your incident response experts and give your team the advantage when defending your organization, right? When an organization is under attack, every second matters when you try to respond back to that. There are a few reasons why teams may take too long to react. The most common is that they don't understand the severity of the situation they find themselves in, and the lack of awareness leads to a lack of urgency. Attacks tend to hit the most inappropriate times, mostly during the holidays or during the weekends, the middle of the night. And since most incident response teams are significantly understaffed, this can be a challenge by itself and understandably lead to we'll get to that tomorrow attitude, right? But unfortunately, tomorrow may be too late to do something to minimize the impact of the attack. I'm not an insurance agent, right? However, this information was provided by an insurance professional, and I wanted to share that with you. State Farm, Farmers, Geico, Progressive, all these are mostly insurance companies. You can think of that they do a good job in terms of coverage. Some provide limited protection for data breach, but the policy is so far from narrow that you would expect, right? You'd expect if you're going to pay for protection, it'll come in a big way to help you. But in reality, only 50% of the problem is covered. Go to Evolve, ProRiders, or Beasley for coverage, because these policies have been compared and reviewed by an insurance professional I know who focuses on cyber coverage, and they're the best in the industry so far. A good policy should have first-party coverage for your stuff, for your, when you say stuff, basically your IP and data, and reputation management, forensic IT, as well as data restoration and third-party coverage for a code, for a code deems you liable to fix for others, like damaged cost, credit monitoring and notification costs and fraud, restitution, etc. That can be affected because you did not do a good job to protect yourself, but which in turn opened it up and gave the hackers access to your client's data, and then your client can come back and sue you as well, right? So you need to protect yourself. Cyber is a very complicated situation, a complicated scenario in insurance industry, and the fact that most insurance agents are in their 60s and above in the industry, so many don't understand the technology that creates the risks, so they aren't good at advising on it. All in all, you don't assume that your insurance agent truly understands this risk, because many don't. When shopping for insurance, ask a lot of questions on the insurance professional on how the coverage works. And also reach out to your IT provider to help you with the application as well, because some questions you may not understand. And by the way, we are here to help you out as well. So if you have any questions, we should be able to help you out, answer those questions. And then a very specific advice would be the retroactive date. It's important because the type of policy, the retro date, defines how far back in history they will cover incidents. So usually in an average, it takes around 200 days to discover a breach. You can understand why, no matter what the cyber liability you get or change, you want to make sure that the retroactive date is in place, and you don't want to leave out time periods that are not covered. Just a few more information here. These are the new companies that provide better cyber insurance coverage. You want to look for a specialist, make sure they understand and answer your questions regarding cyber coverage as well. we all know what happened after this, right, in the movie. So when your hacker gets in, we pretty much know what happens. We also assist in cybersecurity assessment as well. A good place to start is to find out what your vulnerabilities are. How we recommend doing that is by offering you a security assessment. We leverage the best class of tools to assess your environment, and we are offering a 30% security discount, 30% discount on anyone who joined our presentation today. Phishing is one of the common mechanisms for hackers to get access to your data. And we are well equipped with tools to go monitor on the dark web activity that is going on related to your domain and your organization. And if we were to find information, we can help you, we can help alert you about it and help figure out how to protect yourself when you come to know that that your data has been made available in the dark web. Takeaway, if you're in that 10% that doesn't have a cybersecurity awareness program to address phishing, put in place one without delay, right? And we help you and your organization with cybersecurity training. And it's not just a one-time training, it's a customized training that we can work with you for your organization, all your employees in the organization, and provide training as and when needed, as well as on a regular basis as well. So we can customize it based on what your needs are. We can help you put security policies and procedures in place and help educate your employees to go through those and understand what those policies and procedures are, and acknowledge them and have an electronic record of that, so that when you want to present that information to your cybersecurity insurance company, we can provide you all an electronic report that you can share that with them. So does your organization have a cybersecurity awareness program in place to address phishing for your employees? We have tools and trainings, and we advise and recommend this for your team. So after your cybersecurity assessment, we recommend cybersecurity awareness training as well. And wrapping it all up, here's some recommendations going forward to help secure your company from these threats. There's no guarantee of 100% prevention. However, going back to the layered approach, these are recommendations we feel as an IT organization are going to be giving you the best results to protect your data and prevent unnecessary vulnerabilities. No one is immune, and make sure you have good backups in place and that they are functioning and tested. You could have a backup, but have you gone, tested, and verified that the backup works fine? Have you tried restoring the backup? Have you tried validating that the files that you really need for operations of your company are there in the backup? That's a very key step, and make sure that you do that. And no one is immune. Make sure the layered protection is going to be the best approach to keep adversaries out of your environment in the first place. And finally, TeamLogic IT was recognized as the Managed Service Provider of the Year out of all the MSPs globally. Nobody else can say that. And we won that by our size, best practices, tools we use, and the support model, and the client feedback, and the innovation, and the growth that we have. We are very proud of this accomplishment, and kind of gives you an idea of where we are. And thank you for joining us today. I can help answer your questions. Please put those in the chat box or contact myself. Here's my contact information. I invite you to schedule a quick chat to discuss your environment, current environment IT needs, and give you recommendations for next steps. Remember, if you'd like to know for a fact what your vulnerabilities are, I'm extending a 30% discount for a security assessment to this group. And thank you all. Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you, Ashwin. That was great. I just want to make sure you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I just want to make sure everyone gets Ashwin's information. It is ashwinm@teamlogicit.com. And if you want to learn more about TeamLogicIT.com, their website is www.teamlogicit.com/Renton WA. So I think that's great. So there are a few questions in the chat. I do want to get to that, and there's some reiterations here, so I think that's good. So one of the things is, in our new world, we have employees that are working from home. Probably will continue to work at home, which means we've got laptops going back and forth. So should we be concerned about that, the security on those computers? And if so, what do we need to do about it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, Kathy, and you are correct. Working from home is a norm now. It's no longer a luxury. It's a norm. So a lot of employees are working from home. You don't know what's going on in their computers, right? I mean, the kind of sites they go to, and they have their data might be compromised as well. So imagine if you don't have a secure way of accessing your company network from their home, you're basically opening the way up for the hackers into your organization. So what you want to do is protect yourself by having remember the layered approach that I talked about, and the castle and different layers of security that we talked about. Multi-factor authentication is one way to help protect yourself, and giving access to secure access to through VPN to your office network. And best practices would also be to make sure that we install monitoring agents and antivirus and anti-malware on the employee's computer at home to make sure that their computer is safe and secure as well, right? And basically, it's a layered approach. You're protecting yourself, right?
Okay, you know what, and that's great. So to kind of surmise that, because I think this is something really important to all of us, to make sure we have proper software on their computers, so that they have anti-malware and such installed on their computers, and then to make sure that overall as a company, we have the tools built around our server, et cetera, that we need to protect our internal documents.
Yes, and also providing a secure way for your employees to access the company network by enabling multi-factor authentication. And that's one way to make sure that you authenticate and make sure that the person who's coming in is authenticated to come in.
So that, I will say it now, that to me seems new. So how is that something that, again, somebody like TeamLogic IT could set up multi-factor authentication?
Yes, yes,
because
we can help that.
I don't have that for my employees, so that's something new.
So these days, if you look at, like, if you go to your banking website, right? Let's say, for example, if you go to Bank of America, let's say you have a Bank of America account. When you go online, these days banks, enable multi-factor authentication for your login. So every time you log in, it asks you, hey, I'm going to send you a token. Give me that token, put it in during validation, as a validation, right? It sends it to you as a text or as an email to you, which only you have access to, right?
Awesome. Okay, thank you. Because again, I'm just going to reiterate from where I sit. This whole new idea of people working from home has created a lot of questions, especially in the small business community. What do we do? We've got a handful of employees. We sent them home a couple of years ago. They like it. and so now, we have this whole new world, and basically all of our information is living in the living rooms, dens, and offices of our employees. So,
yes.
Okay, great. So moving on with that, you talked a lot about emails, and a couple of questions here. And I know this has happened to us before too. With an email as simple as bookkeeper, are they more susceptible to getting emails, getting hacked or trying to be hacked, in the sense that bookkeeper email addresses are targeted to ask them to go cut a check and send it to XYZ company right away on behalf of their supervisor?
So I've heard stories like this.
Yeah.
So it depends on who the bookkeeper is. I mean, what kind of system they have in place, right? Is that emails? Do they get a lot of spams? Do they have spam filters in place, right? And how serious is the bookkeeper taking, the security of their clients' information, right? So is like I mentioned earlier, the hackers always would love to get access to your organization. There are a few ways to get in. One is through your email, through phishing, right? And then there's also, they could call you on the phone and get information from you and authorize and make things happen. And there's, you want to help protect yourself as much as possible using the right tools in place, making sure you have spam filters in place. You have, for wire frauds, right? You want to have processes in place. Let's say if you were to get an email asking the bookkeeper to release the funds, the bookkeeper on their process, the first step is to call the client and validate that this email came in. Is this an authorized request? And confirm through the email, right, in writing, and make sure through the phone as well, having a call with the client, and then making the right actions, taking the right actions after that.
They're very clever, those sneaky people that are trying to impersonate getting money out of people. All right, so the next question is, I think it was the slide after the castle.
Mm-hmm.
There was a acronym, MFA. We're wondering what, and if you want, you could scroll back, but
Okay.
you didn't spend a lot of time on that slide, but there was something about MFA, and I did not know what MFA stood for.
Okay, let me go back up. Was it this? Was it after the slide?
Maybe it was before this one. Let's try. Maybe I misunderstood. Before or after? Let's go back one more. There, not using MFA. What?
Oh, MFA. So this was the multi-factor authentication. This was the one that I was recommending about when somebody wants to work from home and not having multi-factor authentication, right? So let's say if you were to, like I gave you the example of when you try to log into your bank account online, nowadays they basically ask you to give you a security token, and they send it to your phone, your registered phone on the system, and then they ask you to plug in that number, token back into the when you're logged in. So it's kind of authenticating that you are the right person getting in, and making sure that it is working fine, right? So it is multi-factor authentication. This is what I was talking about.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Matt Lawson helped confirm that. So we've got a very savvy audience here too. So thank you, Matt. Okay, so two more questions. You had touched on insurance and getting cybersecurity insurance. Well, insurance companies want to know what cybersecurities you have in place. Can companies like TeamLogic IT help provide some sort of additional comfort for insurance companies that would then equate to discounts in any way or savings to our businesses?
Yes, absolutely. Like, for example, you mentioned about from a chamber point of view, you were concerned about employees working remotely, right? One of the asks from the if you read through that paperwork that cybersecurity insurance companies give it to their clients, one of the checkbox usually is, do you have multi-factor authentication in place to manage connectivity to your network, right? Have you protected yourself? So that's a question they ask, right? So if you're not aware of what it is, then basically you're scratching your head and thinking, okay, what is that? How do I get access to that? How do I implement it, right? You want to talk to your IT service provider. So I can come in, for example, and help answer those questions for you. And also, if there are things that the cybersecurity insurance companies, they give you discounts based on what you have, the processes, the tools in place, right? What backups do you have? Have you verified that your backup works? Do you have an incident response plan in place? What kind of security training are you providing to your cybersecurity training? Are you providing your employees? Remember, I was telling you about where employees can be the weakest link, but if you train them with cybersecurity awareness and equip them, they can be your first line of defense and one of your best lines of defense as well. So you're correct. I mean, I can come in and help implement those tools and processes for you, and at the same time, and give you access to accessory training materials and customize them for your organization as well.
Okay. So what I'm really hearing is that as small businesses, any size business, actually, it is to our advantage, not just from the security perspective, but the insurance perspective, that putting all these processes in place are important and actually well worth our investment. In the long haul, they're going to save us money with our insurance companies and save us threats and headache and time and even more money should we be threatened or attacked later on.
Yes, exactly. This goes back to this slide that we have on the screen, layers. The more layers you have, the better you have chances of protecting your data and IP, right?
Okay. That's great. Okay, one more quick question, and then there was a comment. So when you talk about backing up and things like that, do you still recommend that as far as documents and accessing documents and saving documents that we use the cloud, or are there other tools we should be using?
So typically, before cloud, they used to back up to a server drive, and then the backup procedure was they would take it to a secure location, maybe their home or some other place where they have an additional backup, right? So these days, people are moving stuff into the cloud, right? So you can still back it up to your local server and still back up that data onto the cloud as well. So you can do that and back it up to another remote location as well. So however you want to do it, we can help set that up.
Great. Okay, that's excellent. And then the last thing was, I have to say, I don't know about how everybody else, but I don't think I'll ever forget the analogy that you created with passwords are like underpants, and you kind of skimmed right over that. But I have to say, I love that. Change them often and don't share.
Yeah.
So that's a great way to think of passwords, because we tend to try to use familiar things that we'll remember, use them over and over again in different locations. And yes, that's the one. So just a tip for all of us, and that's probably something I'm going to share often, just to get the point across. So Ashwin, with that, I think I'm going to check one more time, but yes, I think that we're out of questions with the chat. So I want to thank you very much for joining us today. I'd like to thank our audience for being here with us. Again, this program was recorded. It will be added to our library. And I want to let you know that we will continue to do these. And along this theme, next month's webinar, we will have our interim police chief, Paula Schwann, talk to us about keeping our businesses physically safe. So today we've talked about keeping our computers safe and keeping our employees safe and protecting ourselves against cybersecurity. Next month, we will be talking about actually keeping our physical businesses and our employees safe directly. And so we'll have a conversation around how to provide a better, safer work environment, and not just for us, but for our neighbors as well. So with that, Ashwin, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us today. And again, thank you all of you that joined us for listening. And on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, I just want you to know that we are here for you. Any question, any day. Our only job is to make sure that you are successful. So please never hesitate to reach out. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.